While much of the world's attention remains fixed on rising tensions around Iran and the Strait of Hormuz, another dangerous and often overlooked conflict is rapidly escalating in Lebanon, one that could have long-term implications for borders and stability across the Middle East. In early 2026, the regional situation intensified after major U.S. and Israeli strikes inside Iran reportedly targeted senior leadership and strategic sites, marking a significant escalation in an already volatile environment. But while global focus shifted toward Iran, a second front was quietly reigniting along Israel's northern border. Hezbollah, the powerful Iran-backed militant and political organization based in Lebanon, resumed firing rockets and drones into northern Israel for the first time since the fragile ceasefire that followed their last major war in late 2024. Israel responded swiftly. Within days, it launched extensive airstrikes across Lebanon, targeting Hezbollah infrastructure, weapons storage sites, and command positions. But this time, the response did not remain limited to air power. By mid-March, Israeli ground forces moved into southern Lebanon once again. Their stated objective is clear: push Hezbollah forces away from the Israeli border and prevent future attacks. At the center of this strategy lies a critical geographic line, the Litani River, located roughly 30 kilometers north of the border. This line has long been central to the conflict. Following the 2006 war, UN Resolution 1701 called for Hezbollah to withdraw north of the Litani River and disarm. However, this was never fully implemented, and Hezbollah maintained a presence in southern Lebanon while gradually rebuilding its capabilities. Now, Israel appears determined to enforce a buffer zone more directly. As the offensive has intensified, large-scale evacuation warnings have been issued across southern Lebanon, urging civilians to move north. The result has been a massive wave of displacement, with hundreds of thousands, potentially over 1 million, people forced to flee their homes. Entire towns near the border have been emptied, infrastructure has suffered heavy damage, and uncertainty is growing over when, or if, many of these civilians will be able to return. While Israel maintains that its objectives are focused on security, not territorial expansion, some political voices within the country have suggested the need for a long-term buffer zone in southern Lebanon, similar to the security zone Israel maintained between 1982 and 2000. There is no official policy of annexation. However, the scale of military operations, combined with evacuation patterns and political rhetoric, is raising concerns among analysts that a prolonged military presence could emerge. To understand why this situation is so fragile, it's important to look at Lebanon itself. Lebanon is not just facing war, it is already dealing with a deep internal crisis. Since 2019, the country has experienced one of the most severe economic collapses in modern history. Its currency has lost more than 90% of its value, banks have imposed strict withdrawal limits, and much of the population has been pushed into poverty. Then, in 2020, a massive explosion at the port of Beirut devastated the capital, killing over 200 people and causing billions of dollars in damage, further weakening public trust in the government. Amid this instability, Hezbollah remains one of the most powerful actors in the country. Formed in 1982 during Israel's invasion of Lebanon, Hezbollah has grown into a heavily armed organization backed by Iran. It operates both as a militia and a political party, and in some areas, its capabilities rival those of the Lebanese state. This creates a fundamental dilemma. Lebanon's political system is built on a delicate balance between religious communities, Christians, Sunni Muslims, and Shia Muslims, designed to prevent another civil war like the one that lasted from 1975 to 1990. But this same system also limits the government's ability to act decisively. If the Lebanese government attempts to forcibly confront Hezbollah, it risks internal instability or even conflict. If it does nothing, it risks continued escalation with Israel. Now, as fighting intensifies once again, Lebanon finds itself caught between these two pressures. The humanitarian situation is deteriorating rapidly. Large-scale displacement, particularly from southern and Shia-majority areas, is beginning to strain the country's already fragile social balance. In some regions, tensions are rising as communities struggle to absorb displaced populations. At the same time, Hezbollah has made it clear that it does not intend to disarm and continues to frame the conflict as a defensive struggle. Israel, meanwhile, maintains that its operations are necessary to ensure long-term security along its northern border. But the longer the conflict continues, the more uncertain the outcome becomes. Several possible scenarios could unfold. Israel could eventually withdraw under international pressure or rising costs. It could use its military presence as leverage in future negotiations with Lebanon. Or it could maintain a prolonged presence in southern Lebanon as a buffer zone, something that over time could become increasingly difficult to reverse. History has shown that such arrangements do not always remain temporary. For Lebanon, the stakes are extremely high. A country already under severe economic and political strain is now facing the added pressures of war, displacement, and internal tension. If the situation continues to deteriorate, the consequences could extend beyond Lebanon itself, impacting regional stability and creating wider geopolitical ripple effects. This is not just another flare-up in a long-running conflict. It may prove to be a critical turning point, one that shapes the future of Lebanon and influences the balance of power across the Middle East for years to come.